Hello, and welcome to Making Creativity Pay, the podcast where we talk to people in creative industries about how they promote and market their work. I'm Dan Barnett, and this episode I spoke with comedian Davina Bentley. Davina is currently preparing for the Edinburgh Fringe, where she's performing her debut show, Dancing While Old. We talk about why this year is the right year to debut, and moving away from a legal career to focus on comedy. We also talk about building a social media presence and creating comedy both online and for radio. I started by asking Davina to give a brief introduction about herself.
I'm Davina Bentley. I have been a stand-up for about 10 years. I've never debuted, which I'll do this year. I also do sketches online, which I started in about 2022 around lockdown. I also work as a lawyer, and this year I'm taking my Edinburgh show Dancing While Old. I'm doing my Edinburgh show at Pleasance at 5:30 at the Courtyard. And it's a show about how things change when you get in your early 40s. You feel like a real loss of identity because you're no longer necessarily somebody who perhaps previously turned heads, or now you're no longer like a pretty young thing or a fresh young thing. But if you're not married with kids, you're not that either. There's like a lot of expectation. And so the show is about how I felt better reading that Henry VIII was 44 when he started executing his wives. So I've like got 2 years to kind of find out what my thing is to do. And that's the show.
So within that, why this year? Not because, like you said, you've been doing stuff online for a number of years. You've been performing for a decade. So what made this year your year?
I think I'd always told myself I'd only go up once I had an agent, and actually maybe I regret that because I always felt like people who went up without an agent versus people who went up with an agent or maybe with a PR. I always, it's that line from Veep. It's like bringing a chocolate dildo to a sword fight. Or from the thick of it, you know what I mean? Like one person is very armed and one person isn't. So it always felt like a real inequality of arms. So I wanted to wait till I had an agent. Although obviously, man plans, God laughs. It's been, like all comedians' paths more like that. But I waited a long time. I mean, there's no point kind of lamenting, but would I have taken up? I think now is the right time. And I also feel like I've got more to say. I suppose if I would have gone up earlier, it would have been like a very different show that I was doing. And that's one thing that I do think is quite interesting, is this kind of, when you're young, you have so much energy and motivation and you really believe in yourself a lot because life hasn't yet been like, shut up. But now I'm older, the story is like a very different one. But I would hope that I'm a better comic. In fact, I'm going to back myself and say I'm a better comic.
Is the Fringe, I'm going to the Fringe because it's the Fringe, it's something I want to do, or I'm going to the Fringe because I want to meet these dozen people who can take my career the way I want it to go over the next couple of years?
It's the first, because also I don't know if that means to end stuff even works. Like, maybe that does work for some people and that's awesome, but I have to do the Fringe because I have to do a show. And it is better in my head. I'm telling myself it is better that I do, like, God forbid, it's better to have a 1-star show that you do than a show that does not exist in your head, that in your mind has 4 stars or 5 stars. Like, you just have to do the thing, because otherwise, I'm not a natural jumping off the cliff kind of thing. I'm naturally really risk averse, but I just have to do a show. It's like something in me. And meeting people, I don't even know if that's like a thing that could even happen for me.
Sure.
So it's the art, but it is the show.
And I saw online you posted some photos from your photo shoot, and you said the poster's still to go live. How did you find that as a process, as a little project in itself?
So nice. It's I'm not very visual. I know what I like, but I don't have like an innate visual eye that a lot of people. So I went to like many sensible people. I went to the amazing Michael Dewlings, who's incredible and has done like so many brilliant posters, and he is amazing. So it kind of has been fun because it's something that I've worked out with my agent. It's been like a really nice thing. My agent, I've signed with Mirador, and it's been like this lovely thing. Also, my show is a lot about being a woman. It's a very gendered thing, so it's been really nice being like, do you like this? Do you like these colours? Do you like that? Oh, this looks like that. It's been like a lovely sort of creative side project. And I think we finalised it really on Friday. It's sort of finalised today, but, I think it's really fantastic.
Yeah, and then posters, flyers. Had a guest on last week who described the outdoor poster situation as a shit show. I don't know if you found the same.
I've been lucky because I've not been dealing with it because I have a producer, but I don't. I'm very grateful that I've not been one of the many people having to deal with that. It sounds really difficult and very upsetting. And I understand that like contracts have to be handed over, no one can have a monopoly and so on. It sounds really, really difficult.
Yeah, and so with the poster itself and presumably flyers, do you think, right, I never know how people kind of gauge how many do you think, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000? In your mind, are you thinking, I'm going to be there 4 hours a day giving 20 flyers an hour, so I need however many?
I've done that. So for my last 45 minute, I was on the corner, often with Freya Mallard, who would very kindly do hours with me. And she had a show at City. I had a 45 minute at Just the Tonic. And just I know it's like part of it. And I know it's a really good ego death, but that's something I always found really tricky. Like you're meant to be writing the show, you're meant to be working on just tweaking things and this, that, and instead you're spending like 4 hours in the rain. And I think that's not the best. So this year, for the first time ever, I'm paying for flyers, but I can't completely, I don't know. It's so hard, isn't it? It's like, do you count yourself as somebody who has like graduated beyond that? Because I remember one year there was an amazing sketch duo and one of them was flyering outside Pleasance, and I went to see their show. That was like the show. And I thought that was so cool that one of them was just like, yeah, we need to sell some tickets, let's flyer. But please don't make me, I really don't want to.
You do both kind of, say real world, for want of a better phrase, proper club comics.
I do real world comedy. Exactly, I do real world comedy in the real world.
Real world stuff, and obviously a lot of online. And looking at the blurb for your Fringe, and kind of one of the first things it mentions is 1.7 million likes. Do you find how the two interact with each other? Do you think the kind of that stuff will help sell tickets, or is it almost like a kind of separate world in that, the minute you start asking an online audience to say, come see my show, they're like, well, no, we just want your sketches?
I think there's always a real, I know that critics are very, very disdainful of people that do things online and don't, translate it correctly to stand-up. But, I was a stand-up first, and I am I see myself much more as a stand-up. And people may know me from online videos or doing Binks and Hebrides with my friend Freya, but I'm excited about the mix, but currently at the moment it is primarily stand-up, and there are tent poles of sketches in between that kind of anchor. But it's not an hour of sketch comedy. And I also think it's hard, isn't it? Because people might come and see you. I was talking to, I think, Josh Balfe about this and be like, do the binge, do that one, do the Kent Mum. And I might be like, no, right now I'm talking to you about the perimenopause and about being invisible in your 40s. We're not doing Kent Mum. So I think you've also got to, also audiences understand that, like, you're not just recreating your sketches online. And if they do want that, they're going to be sorely disappointed.
You mentioned Binks and Hebrides there, because, yes, you've both got a podcast and not got a podcast, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Exactly. We've not got that's literally our selling point, because everybody has a podcast. So Freya and I have distinguished ourselves from the market by only occasionally having a podcast.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to kind of describe the premise behind it, and because you've been doing it for a couple of years now, so it's kind of grown quite a bit.
So I do. It's just it started in a sort of very organic, light touch way. My friend Freya Mallard, who is also a stand-up and sketch comedian, we do two posh girls, the sort of upper class girls from southwest London. It is a parody of, lots of people think it's a parody of sort of Made in Chelsea spin-off podcasts, but also based on my experiences at Edinburgh and St Andrews and school. And we play two girls who are horrendous and very ignorant. And it's, you know, we like to think of it as Joan and Jericha. We always say it's Joan and Jericha meets Made in Chelsea. So when people say it's like Joan and Jericha, we are so happy. But we, you know, give appalling life advice. We listen to problems from people, advise them on the basis of horrific values, and say horrendous things. But it is really, do you know what's really fun? It's so fun to do. It's like the fun, because also we say such stupid things and they think such horrific things. It's really fun basically because they're sort of villains, and it's really fun to play them. And we have more Binks and Hebrides stuff coming, but you can check them out. They're all on YouTube. Oh yeah, and we now have a new Instagram, thanks to Freya, and we have a new TikTok. So give Binks and Hebrides Wine Time a follow on Instagram and TikTok. I'm so bad at selling, but they're really good. And there's just so much. We've done so many episodes. The best thing about it is there is genuine lore, but sometimes I forget the lore. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, did we go to St Andrews or Edinburgh? I can't even remember anymore. Like, there's so much that we've intimated over the last 2 years or nodded at, but there's like this sort of huge trove of folklore around it.
Yeah. And do you see it going all the way and being a podcast rather than just a take of podcasts?
I think we've done a couple of live shows and they've gone really well. I think we need somebody to sort the infrastructure for us, which somebody will. So thank you to that person. Thank you to that man or woman. But it, you know, Freya and I both really busy doing our stand-up. Freya's got 2-week whip. We are busy writing our stand-up shows, so we just don't have time to, you know, be editing like podcast clips. We gotta write jokes. We gotta, you know, perform at clubs and so on.
Yeah, you're saying, you know, your background in law, but you're not practicing as much at the moment. At what point did you kind of say, I want the creative stuff to kind of be the main focus of what you do? And how hard was that to kind of make that leap, or was it kind of gradual increments?
I think it was 2019. So thank you for asking. I'm really pleased you've asked me that question, because often people think like, oh, you're a lawyer, you must be very successful and rich. Sadly, neither are true. But there is a path you go on, which is like when you're an associate at a law firm. And if you're an associate, you'll probably become a senior associate and hopefully a partner. That's sort of traditional path. I came off that path in 2019. So 7 years ago. It's quite a long time, and it was a massive thing to give up. I gave up being somebody who was going to ever be a partner and be a, you know, what I would call a proper lawyer, as opposed to a locum lawyer, contract lawyer, self-employed lawyer who's just sort of going from firm to firm, primarily reviewing documents on large litigation exercises. So lots of people do that kind of law, and often they're a mum, or sometimes they are ski instructors, or you know, they are juggling things, or they just don't want a really stressful life. But it was a big decision to make. And occasionally when comedy is awful, I'm like, what did I give up? And then when comedy is amazing, I'm like, best thing ever. I mean, in an ideal world, it's balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or maybe in an ideal world, it's not. Maybe it's, but well, I suppose this probably leads to what you're talking about. Who primarily works just on their art or their creative thing?
Yeah. And I imagine those feelings, you get them within the same day as well.
Completely. And also, like, when I've had some tricky stuff to do with comedy recently, and I've been like, is this not a sign, but is this just a way of, is it just like, you know what, this is not sustainable, I can't do this, maybe it's, you know, back to law. But as you say, you know, within the same day. And then you have a good gig, right? That's what it is. I had a really tricky gig. Was it last week? I had a really tricky gig. Like, I like the way I asked, like you were there.
It was terrible. No.
It was a really, that was it. 10 minutes, all new material. I've just got every like club gig I'm doing now, paid or otherwise, I'm doing new material, and they know I am. And I think I went too fast. I was trying to pack all this in. I was like, look, come on, guys, we need to test these new jokes. Let's go. And, you know, all pro comics doing new stuff, but I just didn't work. And I was like, oh my God, that whole 10, it's got to go. It's got to be rewritten. That's all done. And then I was feeling really disappointed. And then Wednesday, such a good gig in Hackney. Every joke landed. Maybe it was all delivery because we were much more relaxed. The MC was amazing. Even though quarter the number of people. So, you know, within 3 days, we've gone from I'm leaving comedy. Bye, leaving, you know, like a child pretending to run away from home. Bye, see you, I'm leaving forever. That's what I was doing.
Yeah. Because obviously, yes, it's a big commitment doing a month in Edinburgh. And you were saying about all the kind of the upfront costs and everything else. It's a big thing. But I mean, I know you kind of saying, you know, you felt that now was the right year. But even with all of that, did the financial side of things ever make you think, do I really, really want to be doing this?
Always. That was always the thing. I mean, besides the doing of it, the main thing was nobody has 20 grand. Like, nobody. I remember once talking to a female comic, we both said, this is like a wedding. And she was like, I'm only going to do it once. We're like, so 25 grand, it's a wedding. That's what people pay when they get married, right? To whatever, the bar and the dress. Same vibe. Do it once. Could be great, could be a disaster, but you've got to sort of do it. But that was always the main thing. Whether or not you pay it up front, whether or not you borrow, it's still such a large sum of money.
I mean, in terms of promotion, you talked about flyering and posters and all that kind of stuff. Do you look at ticket sales? Are you in your mind, or are you kind of, I'm not even going to think about that until like the 3rd of August?
I don't think I think I'm a little bit more of my old agent who I loved. She said lots of smart things, even though she's very young, but very smart. And she would always say things like, which I'm sure is right, like, you really need to focus on the show. Go and focus on the show. So I think things like maybe ticket sales and critics coming and all those things that you cannot control. I wonder if maybe it's best just to ignore those things and then instead focus on the things one can control, like, shall I move that joke there, or shall I put this, you know, all of that, the actual show itself. Because also, where does it get you? Say you haven't sold as many tickets as you'd like. I think it's different for a Whit, but for Edinburgh,
yeah,
I think maybe not.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. You were talking about kind of doing some new material and stuff like that. Is that for the show?
Yeah, so everything now is in service of the show.
So in your head, if you had to do the Edinburgh show tomorrow, is there something, but you still want to flesh things out? Or are you still kind of got, I got this 5-minute section, I still need something to put in?
I've got too much material. So really what I'm doing is I'm trying to overwrite and then cut back to my favourite. So I have, you know, I've been going so long, I have more than enough, but everything for this show is new. I think everything is within maybe the last year. So it's kind of like the best bits, because the main thing is I have to enjoy doing it. Like, I've got this whole intro, it's about 5 or 10 minutes and it works. I don't really like it. So now I've got to do a 5-10 minute intro that I really like. And I've got to find it, and the only way I can find it is at gigs, because you might write it and have your clever comedy friends be like, that's amazing, that's such clever writing. That's not helpful. That's like, I mean, it is helpful, it's very sweet, but it's not the same as going to a club and having people laugh at the joke.
Yeah. Is that harder to kind of workshop an intro? Because I'd imagine like 10 minutes in the middle, you've probably got some kind of story, and you know it'll have an arc and it'll have a payoff. Whereas an intro maybe doesn't have that kind of big punchline at the end.
Totally. You're just scattering Chekhov's guns everywhere, Chekhov's Korean face masks everywhere. You're scattering all that stuff. I'm now thinking, finally, I'm getting why like the first 5-10 minutes of all my favourite comedy online specials aren't very good. Because they're really hard, because you've got to set everything up. And it's a bit like the conclusion of the essay. So all my middle bits, all my best stand-up, you know, that's all, you know, I'm fine, you know, I think. But yeah, it's the intro beginning bit. I don't want to say killing me, but this is the other thing that's so tricky, and it just comes down to money, is that the more sessions you have with your director, I think the better you're going to be. I'm very lucky to have a great director, but you know, one should pay people for their expertise and their work like you would pay, I think, an accountant or a doctor or a lawyer or any professional. And you know, that's something that has to be budgeted and worked for and so on. But it is really fun, like when bits work, like last Wednesday when these 2 new bits worked, you know, it's so cheesy, but like there is no better feeling.
Yeah. And in picking a director, I mean, a bit like, you know, on the poster, you know, you see someone's work you like. Was it someone that you thought, yeah, I've seen a particular show that they've directed, and you think, yes, they could do the same kind of thing for me, and it kind of works that way?
I mean, it was always going to be Dec Monroe because I'd done sessions with him years ago, just like with my 10s and Club 20s or whatever. And I always really liked him. He always thought I was very funny. I always thought he was very funny. It was always, although I really would like, I mean, I've been saying this for, I really want to do some sessions with Elf because she taught me on Soho Labs. And although she's a friend, she was also my teacher. And she's incredible. So it was always going to be like Dec. And if I can get Elf as well. And it wasn't that I saw shows of Dex. I knew he'd done Juice and I knew he'd done Sophie Hagen's. I knew he'd done Lara Ricotes. And, you know, I've obviously watched that show and I love it. But it actually wasn't that. It wasn't watching the shows and then being like, oh, it's Dec Monroe. It was the other way around. It was and also he does this, I haven't done it, but he does this course apparently where people are like evangelical, the Bill Murray, and people come off being like, I'm going to quit my job and be a stand-up. I'm fuck KPMG. I'm professional stand-up now.
Yeah, I think there's a comedy group that they've got comedy night now. I think they all did the course, and so yes, they've now set up a comedy. Yeah, because I had Dec on.
I think I've done that night.
Probably a couple of years ago. Yeah, and he was great to chat to.
He's great. He's very good. Yeah, he's great.
I mean, how do you find not in the negative sense, in the overall sense, criticism? Or kind of, you know, feedback for the nice.
I love it. I love it. I take it so graciously.
Because I've always thought, you know, stand up and performance is almost like a kind of a solo sport, and then someone coming, you know, and it's your truth and what you feel, and then someone comes in and says, well, you know, how about doing this? That must be quite hard to kind of say, yes, I understand why you're right and I'm wrong and I should change this, and that must be quite hard to take sometimes.
Yeah, and I think a really big thing, I spoke to like a few of my like very creative, more like actory writer friends, and one was saying that a friend of ours who's a writer and is successful, takes notes so graciously, and I was so impressed and jealous, and I told her and she was like, but I think taking notes graciously is really important. However, I also understand and have learnt from another writer that sometimes it's not the note, it's the note within the note. And that's the same also for development as well. Like, they're like, I don't really like that bit. I don't know, like, not that, but this, like, not that. But, and it doesn't mean they're saying change that. Often it isn't that because they don't have the answer. But there's something wrong with that bit and it maybe does need to be moved. So I think I've also gotten more confident in my voice and more confident at saying, not just pushing back general wholesale, because that's not helpful to anyone. Like, you're paying a director to help you, but just saying, the reason I like this joke is because of X. Can you see why I've kept it there? But I take your point about Y. Just like holding your ground without being a completely ungracious brat.
Talking about online, and do you almost kind of, does that feel like a job in itself as a kind of, for one of us, content creator?
I am not a content creator, Dan. Take it back.
I mean, it's the kind of thing is that it does have that negative content, but it's just a phrase to kind of say you put things online that a lot of people see. You know, if people saw it.
Artist. The word is artist. My wigs are my paintbrush. I know what you mean. It's there's like this push. Somebody said to me who does a lot of online stuff, it's like feed the beast. Everything is, I know, like the clip economy now. And, you know, the less I post, the more I get punished by those social media platforms. So I'll post something soon and it'll get very low number of views because I've not posted for a while. You sort of get punished. But I find it really hard to focus on both because at the same time, because as much as I love doing online stuff, I think you like gear your head towards something. You gear your head towards sketch writing and then you turn that slightly to the side, or you gear your head to writing bits. And I always thought like Freya, who I talked to a lot about comedy stuff, would be like, oh, you should do that. And I'm like, oh, it's a sketch. She's like, no, it's a stand-up bit, Davina. That's a stand-up bit. But I find it really, I mean, they are related because you can have something be both. But I tend to sort of switch. And at the moment, I'm trying to really think in terms of stand-up bits. Because of Edinburgh, I'm not trying to think in terms of sketches. Although I do have a list of 200 sketches that I'd like to film. No, 165 or something.
One thing I often ask about people who kind of do a lot of stuff online is, you know, looking through your TikTok, you'll have one that has 1 million views and then one next to it has 3,000. And does that mess with your head?
But what's so good is to, like, FK Twig said in this interview with Louis Theroux when he was asking about views for her videos, she was like, videos of cats have got millions of views. They've got way more views than like my most popular video. And I do like, my favourite video of mine is probably like an Ibsen one that actually did, it got like maybe 30,000 views. It was about a heroine in an Ibsen play. And so often it is like, or I did an Adam Curtis one that I thought would fail, but actually lots of people liked. Like those ones, the slightly like, I know things, are the ones that I love. But then actually ones I really love sometimes get like, 1,000 views. So I don't want, it's not to stain for your audience but also the other thing is like, people are often like, why don't you do a video that does this? Or why don't you do a video that does that? It's like, I like those videos, but I really, really like ideas to be original. Like I've got on my wall, spin class, but it's the 1979 government. Like, I do think originality is like really important, and I know people feed off and people are like, I'm going to do this video based on another video. And yeah, I think also you can get a bit, at the moment I've probably got slightly trapped in my head about doing online stuff, which is silly. But also it's quite hard to look at your face without being too deep. My show is about aging. It does get quite hard to look at your face as your face changes. I find that very tricky. Although that is the reality of being a human woman of my age, but I do also find that quite tricky.
So talk about sketch and stand-up. I mean, do you think that SNL UK has helped kind of bridge that gap between online comedians and kind of circuit comedians, where it's kind of got a nice mix of the two?
Yeah, totally. And also I like that it's got people like Celeste, like proper, I don't know her, but I like love Lazy Susan, like proper, like proper sketch comics. And also, like proper online people like Al Nash, like people who do really like proper online sketches. I love that.
Yeah.
And I think it's, I'm sure it has.
Yeah. And as always with these things, it seemed like the kind of most obvious thing in the world. And then once it happens, you'll hopefully see lots of other organisations thinking, oh yeah, sketch comedy, that's an idea.
But then you had like Ellie, I always say, is it Ellie and Natasha or Ellie and Nastasia? I never know how to say it. It was like the best sketch show ever. And I know that I think it was delayed by years because of lockdown, but it's like the perfect sketch show. And then I think recently I saw on Instagram that series 2 has been commissioned. But that would have been like ready to go for years, surely, because like they're both like the most incredible sketch artists. So it's not like it wasn't there. Like it was on BBC. I think it was on BBC 3, I suppose, before it went. But like it wasn't like those things weren't literally sitting ripe for not even making, because they're already like those, they were sketch comedians.
Yeah. I've had some people on. I had Zara Gladman, who did Good for Her.
I love it, yeah.
In Scotland, which is great. And again, you kind of think these things can be made not cheaply, but relatively compared to a lot of other TV, relatively inexpensively. But it did seem that it kind of went out of favour, but which seems a bit daft.
I mean, I just pitched and got rejected for a big old sketch show with lots of English and one American comedian for Radio 4. I know lots of people pitched, but it got through the first round, not through the second round, so it was a no. But like I've always loved sketch. Like when I was 23, I took a sketch group from Manchester Uni. I was at Edinburgh, but me and 3 mates did a sketch group called Your Mum. God, it's like 20 years ago, but I've always just loved sketches.
And so you do, you talk about radio, you do stuff for POV on Radio 4 and Sounds. When you're writing, how different is it writing radio versus online or real world sketches, where it is just the audio?
It's quite similar, obviously not identical. I did for POV for series 2, it's not come out yet, a few The Rest Is. So I did A Rest Is Entertainment, I did A Rest Is Politics. In that way, what I've written for them is really similar to what I would do online. But for the first series of POV, I did like very monologue-y monologues, which was super different. It felt much more kind of BBC-ish, in a way more old school, but really fun to do. And actually I did a menopausal hair advert, like an advert that was selling menopausal or perimenopausal versions of shampoo, kind of mugging women off. And I did that for Sounds, both for POV and also did it online as a sketch for BBC Sounds, their Instagram account. And I went for that exactly the way that I do an online sketch. Maybe there's more like, okay, so I guess if I'm filming something, I'll probably be more improvisy and maybe like throw in a line to make myself laugh.
And so you were up last year for a Funny Woman Award.
Oh, yeah.
Content. I
forgot
mean,
that.
I've spoken to a few people about this. I find, obviously, I guess you're always to some extent judged when you perform. But how do you find, going up for awards where you are literally, yes, you're the best or you're not the best? Is that difficult to kind of have that?
I think when I was younger, like I used to do all the comedy competitions. I, did Leicester Square, got into the final of that. Then a year later did Old Leicester Square. And then did Sketch Off. Eventually came second with my friend Adam Flood in a duo called Dregs. But as much as those things feel nice, they can also feel awful. And I think what they're good for is like having your classmates. So when I did Leicester Square, in my final was like Tucson Douglas, who's like such a brilliant comic. It's really good for stuff like that. I don't know how good, what often competitions are doing are probably selling tickets to your friends and family for 20 quid a piece. I'm just a bit sceptical. I know there's something that perhaps we need when we're coming up to distinguish quality. But, I'm not going to put a single comedy competition on my flyer. And that's kind of a conscious decision I've taken with my agent.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really negative. I'm not trying to be, and they can be amazing, but actually they can be really upsetting and like, yeah.
I guess it depends if you win or not.
Right, but then I've had friends of mine win and then have really tricky Edinburghs, or you're suddenly pegged as like the boy of the year, given, you are the new shining star, and then all of a sudden there's all this pressure put on you. So I think it's a tricky thing. I think they're good maybe for people in the industry, or they're good maybe for agents.
Obviously, focus is totally on the Fringe at the moment, but what do you see you want to get from it beyond that? So whether that's, I told a lot of people, Soho Theatre, tour it around the country, film it, all those kind of things. Is there anything in the back of your mind, or are you just, I got to write things first?
Said. What Dan just said. Soho, tour, film, done.
Easy.
Just bish bash bosh. It would be, amazing to get a Soho run. I'm trying to sort of I'm not great at the old foresight. Luckily, that's what good agents are for. But I think I'm quite sort of, at the moment, one thing at a time, like do the show. I've never been a very strategic person. I've never been much of an operator in this business, which has probably not been great. That I'm not a smooth operator in any way. I'm a rough, whatever the opposite of an operator is. But I'm never good at the sort of like 5-year plan stuff. Although arguably I should be. But that plan, what you just said, Dan, was great. Well, let's do that.
Okay, cool.
Let's do that.
At the Fringe, one thing I'm asking guests recently is, when you go up there, it's 4,000 shows. That's kind of incredible thing. When you're looking for things to see beyond kind of people and people friends of friends and all the rest of it, what sells a show for you? What do you think? Oh, I'll take a punt on this for an hour.
It's cheesy, but it's always word of mouth, isn't it? Even if it was like the most obscure kind of like Kazakh drumming, or like, no matter how obscure outside your wheelhouse is it, if somebody was like, there are these aerial artists, like my friend actually was an aerial artist at Edinburgh. If somebody who you rate and has good taste says this thing is amazing, or oh my God, go and see this, everything's like an hour. That's the best thing, because I don't like anything long, because obviously the old attention span was never there. So if somebody says something is brilliant, like once, do you remember Alice Marshall, who did Blood? She now, I think, is a sort of big actress, but she did something called Blood in 2017, 16. It was amazing. I saw it twice. That was all just like the show, but it's all word of mouth, isn't it?
You're on, was it Harper's 5? It's Harper's 5, so that's probably a kind of nice kind of time. But does that then mean that you can't relax until Harper's 6? Or do you kind of get match ready at 3:30, 2 hours before, and the rest of the day you can do what you like, but then you kind of get in the zone a couple of hours before.
I mean, I think because everything is going towards it, there just can't be any dilly-dallying around. It's got to be all, as my friend said to me, he had a very successful Edinburgh. He was like, a glass of wine in the evening, see a show. We're all, I've kind of aged with my group of friends mostly so I think maybe, all the sort of wild Edinburgh stuff, I can just watch the younger comics go and have that really fun time. Wish them well. But I think for me, maybe it'll just be a calmer, and lock in a couple of hours before to just like wander around nervously. But then obviously you get that adrenaline after that lasts, quite a few hours. So, you're quite awake. Even if I have a good gig, I'm quite awake for a few hours after.
Are you saying you've done 45 minutes up there before? So it's not like a completely new thing.
It was quite a few years ago though. Yeah, but I suppose the pressure is that was at just the tonic. Whereas this is much more sort of, I've got the infrastructure now, I've got the PR, and so on. So it feels more high stakes, but obviously in the world of things, it's meaningless. But obviously for me, it's incredibly important and meaningful.
See a lot of the time, kind of following people online, it's usually around about the 15th day that people start to kind of lose their grip on reality. I mean, I don't know how you, in your head, you're kind of looking to plan for that, or...
Yeah. I like to be early, so I'll probably do day 13 for the loosening of the grip of reality. And then by day 15, fully let go. Reality, as I know it, has ceased to be gripped. And then maybe the following week, gripping it back.
Thanks to Davina for coming onto the podcast. You can find out more details in the show notes about where to find Davina both online and at the Fringe. If you enjoyed this, check out our other episodes of a variety of comedians, musicians, authors and others in creative industries talking about trying to make creativity pay. Thanks for listening.